The last cadet to attempt the jungle. Trial had screamed for 6 hours before. The screaming stopped, that was 3 years ago. Nobody had volunteered since. Danny Webb raised his hand anyway. The mess hall went silent. 200 alien cadets turned to stare at the small human. Sitting alone at the corner table, he was organizing items from a survival kit, laying them out in neat rows like a child arranging toys. Golly's Amaranth, with scales like a pangolin, limped over and sat across from him. Deep scars ran down his face and neck, souvenirs from his 2 failed attempts at the trial. "You know what you just did?" Galas asked. "Volunteered," Danny said. He held up a small metal container and shook it. Something rattled inside. "You volunteered to die. The Verdano's jungle has killed every cadet for 47 years. Trained warriors, soldiers with armor and weapons and decades of experience. You are human, you are soft, you are slow, you will die screaming like all the others." Danny opened the container. Inside were waterproof matches. He counted them carefully, then closed. "Again, how long is the trial?" 72 hours. "But nobody has lasted more than 11 hours in a jungle." Danny smiled. "I once spent 2 weeks in a Montana wilderness with nothing but a knife and a tarp. I was 14. Gala stared at him. "What is Montana? A place back home. Cold mountains, big cats that hunt humans, bears that can tear through metal. I learned to camp there, camp live outside, sleep under the stars, survive without buildings or machines." The Morinth shook his head. "The Verdano's jungle is not your Montana. It is a Category 9 death zone. The plants are poison, the animals are monsters. The weather itself kills." Danny nodded. "Slowly sounds challenging." The next morning, Danny stood in the briefing chamber. Commandant Rias towered over him, scales black as midnight, eyes like burning coals. The Draveney officer had overseen the trial for 30 years. He had signed more death certificates than graduation papers. "Private Webb," Ria said, his voice deep and cold, "you are the first human to attempt this trial. I want you to understand what that means." "Yes, sir. It means when you die I will have to explain to your species why we allowed one of their children to commit suicide. It means paperwork I dislike." "Paperwork?" Danny said nothing. Rius leaned closer. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I want to graduate, sir. The trial is required for graduation. Other paths exist, easier paths, paths that do not end in death. I'm not looking for easy, sir. I'm looking for done." Commandant studied him for a long moment, then he stepped back and gestured to the viewing screen. It showed the jungle moon of Verdano's 7 sphere of green and shadow orbiting a massive gas giant. Perpetual twilight covered its surface. Even from orbit it looked hungry. Cadet Supervisor Myra will monitor your trial via drone. Rius said. A fashioned female stepped forward, her skin glowing faintly blue, her arms folded across her chest. "She will record your death for training purposes." "Looking forward to it," Danny said. That Myra's glow flickered with annoyance. "Do you have questions about the trial?" "Parameters, yes, were the typical weather patterns this time of year." She blinked all 4 of her eyes. "Excuse me. Weather, rain cycles, temperature shifts, pressure systems. Why would you ask about weather?" "Because weather tells you everything. Where to find water, where to make shelter, where the animals will be. Weather is survival." Myra exchanged a look with Ruse. In 30 years of trials, no cadet had ever asked about whether they asked about weapons. Escape routes, K-Basti never there are. Sonic storms every 30 to 40 hours, she said slowly. Heavy rain, electrical discharge, they last approximately 6 hours. Danny nodded, filing the information away. Composition rich iron and sulfur. Why? Just curious. The shuttle ride down to the surface took 20 minutes. Danny sat alone in the cargo hold, checking his equipment one final time. Standard survival kit, 1 energy weapon, emergency beacon that would only activate after 72 hours, water purification tablets, nutrient bars, small knife that he left the weapon on the seat. The shuttle door opened too. Darkness and noise, the jungle screamed with life, millions of creatures calling and hunting and dying in the endless twilight. The air was thick and hot and smelled of rotting vegetation. Something massive moved through the canopy above, shaking leaves the size of blankets. Danny stepped out. The shuttle door closed behind him and the craft lifted away, leaving him alone down the orbital station. Myra activated her monitoring drone and prepared to record another death. She watched the small human standing at the drop point, surrounded by darkness and danger. He did not run. He did not draw his weapon. He did not panic. He sat down on a fallen log, closed his eyes and listened. What's he doing? Reyes demanded over the comm. Myra checked her instruments, then checked them again. He appears to be waiting, sir. Waiting for what? I do not know. In a jungle below, Danny Webb sat perfectly still, letting the sounds wash over him. The creatures around him were loud, yes, dangerous, certainly. But they had patterns, rhythms. The calls came in waves, each species responding to the others. He was not listening to the noise. He was listening to what the noise meant. After 10 minutes, he opened his eyes, smiled, and walked calmly into the screaming darkness. He knew exactly where to go. 17 cadets had died within the first hour of their trials. They had run blindly into the darkness, desperate to find safety. They had found only teeth. Danny Webb walked slowly, and he walked quietly, and he watched where he put his feet. Above him, the monitoring drone floated silently, its cameras recording everything. Myra sat in her control room, her hands moving across multiple screens, tracking the human's vital signs and position. His heart rate is 62 beats per minute, she reported to Common. Dant res resting normal for a human. He should be terrified, Ryuz growled. He does not appear to be. On the jungle floor, Danny stopped beside a massive tree trunk. Its bark was covered in fungus that glowed faint green. He studied it for a moment, then pressed his palm against it. Dry, good. He moved on. That he was looking for something specific, not safety, not weapons. He was looking for bugs. 40 minutes into his trial, he found them, a stream of small flying insects barely visible. The twilight moving in a steady line toward the east. Danny followed them. Myra frowned at her screens. He is following insects. Has he lost his mind already? Unknown, sir, but he seems purposeful. The insects led Danny to water, a small stream, no wider than his arm, trickling through a crack in the rocks. He knelt beside it and smelled it first, then he dipped one finger in and tasted the smallest drop. Clean, safe. Dodge. He filled his water container, then followed the stream uphill. Streams came from somewhere. That somewhere usually meant higher ground and higher ground meant better visibility, better drainage, and fewer things sneaking up on you in the dark. The stream led him to a rocky outcrop with a shallow overhang, not quite a cave but close enough. The ground underneath was dry stone. The overhang would keep rain off his head. The rocks at his back meant nothing could attack from behind. Danny nodded to himself and got to work. That he gathered fallen branches and broad leaves, building a simple frame against the rock wall. He packed smaller debris between the branches, creating insulation. Within an hour he had a shelter that would keep him dry and hidden. Myra watched in silence. She had seen cadets build shelters before. They had built fortresses, walls of thorns, and sharpened stakes, defensive positions designed to withstand assault. The human had built a nest. What's he doing now? Ryuz asked. Danny had gathered a small pile of dry wood and was arranging it in a careful pattern. I believe he intends to make fire. Myra said. Fire? Is he insane? Fire will attract every predator within 10 km. Danny struck a match. The flame caught. He fed it carefully, building it slowly, keeping it small and controlled. Smoke began to rise to eye in the darkness. Around him, things moved, heavy footsteps, rustling branches, eyes reflecting the firelight. A Verdano's razor wing descended from the canopy. Its wingspan wider than Danny was tall. Its beak lined with teeth like needles. That a T landed on a branch above his camp and watched him. Danny watched it back. That he did not run. He did not reach for his beacon. He simply sat by his fire, calm and still, and waited. The razor wing studied him, its head tilted one way then the other. In its experience, prey ran, prey screamed, prey fought back. This creature did none of those things. It simply sat there, looking back at it, showing no fear. Razor wing was not hungry enough to deal with something that strange. It spread its wings and flew away to find easier meals. Danny added another stick to his fire and smiled. The razor wing left. Myra reported, her voice confused. It simply left up. Razor wings have killed dozens of cadets. I have a footage, sir. It looked at him and it left. More creatures came throughout the night. They emerged from the darkness, drawn by the light and smoke, curious about this strange intruder. Each one followed the same pattern. They approached, they studied, they found nothing worth hunting. They left. The fire was not attracting predators. The fire was screening visitors, and the smoke was masking Dai's scent, making it impossible for anything to track him by smell. At midnight, Danny banked his fire, crawled into a shelter, and went to sleep. Myra stared at her screens, all four eyes wide. He is sleeping, sleeping. His vital signs indicate deep sleep. He appears to be comfortable. Commandant Rye stood in the observation room for a long time, watching the footage of a human sleeping peacefully in the deadliest jungle in a known galaxy. The human had no weapons, no arm, no advanced technology. He had sticks and leaves and fire, and he was completely fine. What is camping? Ryuz asked. Quietly, Myra pulled up her research notes. According to human records, it is a recreational activity. Humans voluntarily leave their homes and live outdoors for entertainment. They do this for fun. Apparently, sir, they have been doing it for thousands of years. Ryuz watched Danny sleep. The human's face was relaxed, peaceful. Even around him, the jungle screamed with death and hunger. He did not care. Increase monitoring, Ryuz ordered. I want to see everything. This human does, yes, sir. In his shelter, Danny Webb dreamed of mountain, streams and pine forests, and his father teaching him to read the wilderness like a book. He woke once, added wood to his fire, and went back to sleep on 12 hours down, 60 to go. He was doing fine. Something was wrong with the human. Myra was certain of it now. 20 hours into the trial, Danny Webb woke up, stretched his arms above his head, and yawned. Then he walked to the stream, splashed cold water on his face, and began preparing breakfast in a Category 9 death zone that he had collected edible roots the night before, identified by observing which ones local animals avoided and which ones they ate. He roasted them over his small fire, tested a tiny piece for bad reactions, waited 30 minutes, then ate the rest. His methods are primitive, Myra reported to the Council of Instructors, but they're effective. The council watched the footage in stunned silence. 5 officers from 5 different species, each one a veteran of dozens of campaigns. None of them had ever seen anything like this. He has no weapons, Commander TR said, his voice sharp with disbelief. He left his energy rifle on the shuttle. Correct, sir. Then how is he still alive? Myra did not have an answer to. I in the jungle. Danny finished his meal and began to explore. He moved slowly, carefully, always watching and listening. Every few minutes he would stop and study something, a disturbed patch of earth, a broken branch, a pattern of scratches on tree bark. He was reading the jungle like a map. By midday he had identified the territories of 7 different predator species. He knew their hunting grounds, their paths, their patterns. He knew where they slept and where they fed. Most importantly, he knew where they did not go. He stayed in those empty spaces, moving through the jungle like water through cracks, always flowing around danger instead of into it. Then he met the stalkers. Verdano stalkers were pack hunters, 6 legs, bodies low to the ground, jaws that could crush bone. They communicated through clicks and whistles, coordinating their attacks with military precision. They had killed more cadets than any other species on the moon. That a pack of 8 emerged from the undergrowth surrounding Danny. Seconds, their alpha, a massive female with scars covering her snout, clicked a command. The pack began to circle. On the station, Myra reached for the emergency extraction button. Protocol demanded she activated when a cadet faced certain death. This was certain death. Danny raised one hand, palm out. Not a threat, not surrender, just acknowledgement. Then he did something impossible. He looked directly at the alpha, met her eyes, and held the gaze steady. He did not blink. He did not look away. He did not show fear. Alpha stopped circling, her head tilted with confusion. Danny began to back away. Slowly, not running, not panicking, just calmly creating distance while maintaining eye contact with the pack leader. What was he doing? Demanded. I believe, Myra said slowly. He is communicating. Danny and LT Uncle GTY's father had taught him about mountain lions when he was 10 years old. They had been hiking in the back country when they spotted one on a ridge above them. Danny had wanted to run. His father had stopped him. They are not evil, his father had said. They're just hungry. Show them you're not prey, and most times they will find easier meals. Prey runs, prey panics, prey looks away. Be something else. Danny was being something else now. The alpha studied him for a Long moment, this creature was not acting like food. It was not scared. It was not weak. It met her eyes as an equal, not as a victim. The stalkers were not hungry enough to fight. Something that strange, the alpha clicked twice. The pack withdrew, melting back into the jungle as quickly as they had appeared. Danny stood alone in the clearing, heart pounding but face calm. But he waited 5 full minutes before moving again. That evening, Myra began researching human wilderness traditions. What she found amazed her. Camping, hiking, bushcraft, survival training. Humans had spent their entire history learning to live alongside nature instead of against it. They were not apex predators. They were not the strongest or fastest species on their world, but they had survived ice ages and deserts and jungles and mountains. They had spread across every environment their planet offered. They had done it not by conquering nature, but by understanding it. He thinks differently than we do, Myra told the council. Our training teaches cadets to treat the jungle as an enemy, to fight it, to dominate it. The human treats it as a neighbor, a difficult neighbor. Certainly, but still a neighbor. That is absurd. Trust said the jungle is not a neighbor. It is a weapon designed to kill, and yet the human is alive, sir. 36 hours now, the longest any cadet has survived in 47 years. The council had no response to that. I in the jungle. Below, Danny found cave, natural rock formation, dry interior, single entrance. That could be easily defended. He began setting up a more permanent camp. That he was not just surviving anymore, he was settling in. The bird stopped singing 3 hours before the storm arrived. Danny noticed immediately. He had been gathering firewood near his cave when the jungle went quiet, not silent, just quieter. The constant background noise of life shifted, became tense, became waiting. As he looked up at the sky, through the canopy he could see the perpetual twilight growing darker. The air felt heavy and electric against his skin. A pressure was building behind his eyes. Storm coming, a big one. That he dropped the firewood and ran back to camp. On the station, Myra tracked the weather system approaching. Dies position, ionic storm category 4. Estimated duration 6 hours. Wind speeds capable of tearing trees from the ground. Electrical discharge strong enough to kill instantly. Flash floods that would drown anything caught in low ground. The storms had killed 11 cadets over the years. Not predators, not starvation, just weather. Should we extract them? She asked Commandant Rios. No. The trial continues, sir. With respect, the storm will. The trial continues. I want to see what he does. Danny worked fast. He had maybe 2 hours before the storm hit, and that was not much time. He dug drainage channels around his cave entrance, directing water away from his shelter. He gathered rocks and piled them into a barrier. He collected every piece of dry firewood he could find and stacked it deep inside the cave where rain could not reach it. Then he built a second shelter inside the first. Myra watched him construct something he called a debris hut. Small cocoon of branches and leaves, barely large enough for one person, packed with insulating material. Even if the cave flooded, even if his fire went out, he would have a dry space to survive. He is preparing for the worst while hoping for the best, Myra observed. Efficient. The storm hit like a fist from the sky. Lightning turned the twilight into day. Flash after Flash, thunder rolling across the jungle. In continuous waves, rain fell so hard. It looked solid, wind screamed through the canopy, ripping leaves and branches, free, turning debris into weapons. Jungle went insane. Every creature that could run ran, predators abandoned their territories, fleeing to higher ground. Prey animals that had hidden successfully for days were flushed from cover. The normal rules of the jungle dissolved into pure chaos. Inside his cave, Danny sat beside his fire and listened. The drainage channels worked. Water flowed around his shelter instead of into it. The rock barrier blocked wind-driven rain. His fire burned steadily, fed by a stockpile of dry wood. That he was dry, he was warm, he was safe. He used the time to repair equipment. His knife needed sharpening. His water container had developed a small crack that needed sealing. His boots had worn thin in one spot and needed reinforcement, maintenance, even in the middle of an apocalyptic storm. He was doing maintenance. I do not understand him, Myra admitted to herself. The storm raged for 7 hours, 1 hour longer than predicted. When it finally passed, Danny emerged from his cave to find a transformed landscape. Trees had fallen everywhere, streams had become rivers, the air smelled of ozone and wet earth. He adapted immediately. The flooding had driven creatures from their normal territories. That meant predators would be confused, hungry, and aggressive for the next several hours. Danny stayed close to his cave, moving only when necessary, keeping his profile small and quiet, but he also saw opportunity. The rain had filled every natural container in the jungle. He collected water from a dozen different sources, filling every vessel he had. The electrical discharge had created a dead zone around his position where nothing wanted to hunt. The fallen trees had opened gaps in the canopy, letting in more light than usual. The storm had not hurt him. The storm had helped him. On the station, the council reviewed the footage in silence. 54 hours had passed. The human had not only survived the storm, he had used it. His water supplies have tripled, Myra reported. Predator activity in his area has dropped by 60%. He is actually safer now than before the storm hit. Commander Troz shook his head slowly. This is not survival, this is adaptation. He is adapting to everything we throw at him. Yes, sir, that appears to be what humans do. Commandant Rez stood apart from the others, watching the screens with an expression no one could read. His scales have been the color of midnight for 30 years. Today they seemed even darker. 18 hours remain, he said quietly. What else can we send? Myra checked the sensor data. Her 4 hands froze over the controls. Sir, we have a problem. What kind of problem? A Verdano's Titan has entered the trial zone. The room went cold. Titans were the apex predators of the apex predators, massive armored beasts that hunted everything else. The trial was usually suspended when one appeared. No cadet had ever survived an encounter with a Titan. Riss looked at the screens, looked at the human sleeping peacefully in his cave, unaware of the monster approaching his position. The trial continues, he said, and a one argued. Danny heard the Titan before he saw it. The sound was deep, rhythmic, like a heartbeat made of earthquakes. Each footstep shook the ground, each breath moved air. He could feel it in his bones. Before his ears registered the noise, something massive was coming. He climbed the highest tree near his camp. moving carefully, staying hidden. The leaves, from the top he could see. Across the jungle canopy. Could see the trees shaking in a line, moving closer, marking the path of something enormous. Then he saw it, the Verdano's Titan. Emerged into a clearing half a kilometer away. It was larger than anything Danny had ever seen, armored plates covered. Its body like shields of bone, 6 legs. Held it off the ground, each one thick as a tree trunk. Its head was flat and wide, lined with rows of teeth the size of his forearm. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, to find the deepest hole and bury himself until the monster passed. But Danny did not move. He watched that on the station. Myra tracked the Titan's approach with growing horror. It is heading directly toward his position. Estimated arrival time 40 minutes. Can he evade it? Come and dance, Ryuz asked. No, sir. Titans can track prey across hundreds of kilometers. If it has his scent, it will find him. The council watched in silent. This was it. The trial was about to claim another victim. Danny continued to watch the Titan move, and as he watched, he began to notice things. Its movements were slow, not the careful slow of a predator stalking prey, but the painful slow of a body that hurt. Its breathing was labored, each exhale carrying a wheeze that did not belong, and its path was not straight. It weaved, corrected, weave again, like something struggling to stay on course. The Titan was old, very old, and it was not hunting that it was looking for somewhere to die. Danny climbed down from the tree. He returned to his camp and sat beside his fire, thinking the Titan would reach him in less than an hour. He could try to run, but running would trigger a chase response. Even in a dying creature, he could try to hide, but a nose that sensitive would find him anywhere. Or he could do something else entirely. That he walked out to meet it. Myra screamed in her commune web. Return to your shelter immediately. That is a direct order. Danny could not hear her. He had left his emergency beacon in the cave. He walked through the jungle toward the approaching Titan, making no effort to hide. His footsteps crunched on fallen leaves. His breathing was steady, controlled. His heart was pounding, but his face showed nothing. The Titan saw him when he was 30 m away. It stopped, great head turning to focus on this tiny creature that had walked into its path. Its eyes, ancient and tired and full of pain, studied him. Danny raised both hands, palms out. No weapons, no threat. Easy, he said quietly. Easy, big guy. I'm not here to hurt you. The Titan rumbled, low, deep, questioning. Danny sat down on a fallen log, not running, not fighting, just sitting calm and patient, showing no fear. You're looking for somewhere quiet, Danny said. Somewhere safe. Somewhere to rest. I understand. We all get there eventually. He did not know if the creature understood his words, but it understood his tone, his posture, his complete lack of aggression. The Titan moved closer. Danny could feel its breath, now hot and ancient, washing over him in waves. A single snap of those jaws could end his existence. That at T settled down 10 m away from him, slowly, painfully lowering its massive body to the ground. Its eyes never left Danny. They sat together in silence as the hours passed. On the station, council watched in absolute disbelief. The most dangerous creature on Verdano's 7 was lying next to the human like a sleeping dog. What is happening? Troz demanded. Myra could not answer. She had no framework for what she was seeing. The Titan's breathing grew slower as Night fell, its eyes began to close. Open, close again, each breath came. Harder than the last, Danny did not move. He simply sat there, present, witnessed to the ending of something ancient and mighty. You are not alone, he said. Softly. Nobody should die alone, just. Before dawn, the Titan exhaled one final time and did not inhale again. The jungle grew quiet as if even the predators understood that something significant had passed. Danny sat with the body for another hour, then he stood, gathered stones, and began building a cairn over the creature's head. It took him the rest of the morning. When he finished, the pile of stone stood as tall as he was, but he did not know if Titans had traditions for their dead, but he did. The extraction shuttle appeared in the sky. As he placed the final stone, 72 hours had passed. The trial was over. Danny Webb looked up at the shuttle, looked back at the Koran and nodded once. Then he walked toward the pickup point, leaving the jungle behind. That he had survived. But more than that, he had witnessed, and that mattered somehow. That mattered a lot. The observation gallery was full for the first time in 30 years. Word had spread through the station like fire. The human had survived. Not just survived, he had walked through the jungle like he owned it. He had faced a Titan and lived. He had done things nobody understood and nobody could explain. Everyone wanted to see him. Danny Webb stood alone in the center of the council chamber, still wearing his dirty survival clothes, still carrying the smell of the jungle on his skin. He looked small in a massive room, surrounded by alien officers twice his size. Commandant Rye spoke first. Private Webb, you have completed the jungle trial. You're the first cadet to do so in 47 years. Danny nodded. Thank you, sir. Explain, sir. Ryuz leaned forward, his scales dark with intensity. Explain how. Our cadets are trained for combat. They carry the finest weapons. They were the strongest armor. They are stronger and faster and more dangerous than any human. They all died. You walked through that jungle with sticks and fire and survived. Explain. Danny thought for a moment. Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted. Your cadets tried to conquer the jungle. They treated it like an enemy to be defeated. They fought it with weapons and armor and force, but you cannot conquer a jungle, sir. Is too big, too old, too full of things that want to kill you. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I do not try to conquer anything. I tried to live in the jungle, not against it. In it I watch how it worked. I learned its rules. I found the spaces between the dangers where survival was possible, and then I stayed in those spaces. Commander Troz shook his head. That is not a strategy. That is hiding. No, sir, it is adapting. Everything in that jungle is trying to survive just like me. The predators are not evil. They are hungry. If I am not easy prey, they will find easier meals. The weather is not malicious. It is just weather. If I prepare for it, I can use it instead of being destroyed by it. Danny gestured toward the screens, showing footage of his trial. Your training teaches cadets to be warriors, to fight, to dominate, but sometimes the best way to win is not to fight at all. Sometimes the best way to survive is to stop being a threat. The council murmured among themselves. This was not doctrine they recognized. Myra stepped forward, her bioluminescent skin glowing soft blue. I have researched human wilderness traditions. What Private Webb describes is consistent with thousands of years of human survival knowledge. They call it camping, bushcraft, living with nature instead of against it. She displayed her findings on the main screen, images of human families sitting around fires, children learning to build shelters, elders teaching young ones to read the signs of weather and animal behavior. Humans are not apex predators. On their world, Myra continued, they have no natural weapons, no arm, no venom, yet they have spread to every environment their planet offers. Deserts, mountains, frozen wastelands, jungles far more dangerous than Verdanos. She looked at Danny with something like respect. They survived because they learned to adapt, to coexist, to find their place in ecosystems instead of trying to dominate them. Rhea stood silent for a long time. His scales shifted colors in ways Danny had never seen before. Finally he spoke. Private Webb, would you be willing to teach? Danny blinked. Sir, our survival training has produced corpses for 47 years. Your methods produced a living graduate. I'm not too proud to recognize a better approach when I see one. The council chamber erupted in whispered conversation. This was unprecedented. A human teaching alien soldiers, teaching them skills that predated their species by millennia. Danny thought of his father, of cold mornings in Montana, learning to read the wilderness like a book of lessons passed down through generations of humans who had survived by working with nature instead of against it. Yes, sir, he said, I would be honored. 6 months later, a new class of cadets prepared for the jungle trial. They stood in the briefing chamber, nervous and scared, expecting the same speech that had preceded so many deaths. Instead, Danny Webb walked to the front of the room. Good morning, he said. My name is Danny, and I am going to teach you how to camp. He smiled at their confused faces. First lesson, put your weapons away. They will not help you down there. The jungle is not your enemy, is your classroom. You're going to learn to read it, respect it, and live in it. He held up a small metal container. Waterproof matches rattled inside. Sometimes the most advanced survival technology in the galaxy is a simple fire and the knowledge to use it properly. The trial completion rate rose to 73% within a year. They called it the Webb method. Danny just called it camping. And on quiet nights, he would return to the jungle alone, walking through the darkness without fear, listening to the sounds of life all around him. The predators knew him now. They did not attack. They simply watched as he passed, one creature among many, all of them just trying to survive. That he always stopped at the stone Karen, always sat there for a while, remembering. Then he would walk home under alien stars, carrying knowledge older than the species he served, passing it on to anyone willing to learn. Some lessons were universal, some lessons were human, and some lessons could save a galaxy. One cadet at a